I'd like to call to order the special town meeting, November 5th, 2019. Those of you that came early, thank you for coming early. There's a long line out there though, so we need to allow people who were here by 7 o'clock to get in before we start the meeting officially. So what I'm going to do now is call for a recess. I'm going to guess 5 to 10 minutes before we can get the meeting started. So, but since it is 7, I have to open up the meeting officially. So we are in a recess until the rest of the crowd gets in. Thank you very much. If I could ask you to be silent for just another minute or so, please. A couple of things. There are still plenty of seats down here. So for those of you who are sitting in the back, you're more than welcome to because it is kind of full. But if you really want to sit down in the front here, there's plenty of seats down here, especially if you feel as if you will speak on an issue. Okay, so just keep that in mind. We have plenty of seats down here still. We still do have people coming in, but what I did was, at 7 o'clock, I went to the end of the line, and I said to the person at the end of the line, once you're in, give me a wave. That has happened. So therefore, those people who are here by 7 are here officially in the meeting. So therefore, we will call the meeting to order. So, Madam Town Clerk, is the warrant legal?
Yes, Mr. Moderator, the meeting has been posted according to the Mass General laws and the bylaws for the town of Buckingham.
Thank you. A couple of quick favors I'd like to ask everybody. So they printed up 150 copies of the warrant. So just a favor, we'll be starting in about 4 or 5 minutes, but let's say you're a couple and 2 of you have a copy of the warrant. If you don't mind, maybe if one of you could take the warrant back out there so that everyone has a chance to have a copy of the warrant, we would very much appreciate that. Thank you. Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Mr. Battalion, you can come forward and we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance, please. So if you could all rise, please, for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. I'll read the visitors in a few minutes because we're going to probably have some more come in. I want to thank all the individuals who helped set up the town meeting, the town clerk, Board of Selectmen, the entire office there, Mendon Regional School District for providing us the auditorium, and for the folks who set up the microphones, so on and so forth. I also want to thank those who may be helping tonight, if we have to have any standing counts or anything like that. I would like to ask that you all turn on your personal electronic devices, either to vibrate or off, so that we don't have any disruptions during the meeting. Okay. So, one thing that you may have noticed is that there was a blue sheet out there called Town Meeting Basics, Flow of the Meeting, and it's a 2-sided document. This is something that I probably should have put together a long time ago, but this year I finally got to it. So, for those of you who've come many times to town meeting, you might have a general sense for how things happen, and you might look at this and say, oh yeah, I understand all that. But I'm sure there's people out there who probably don't have a sense for the way the town meeting works. We are certainly not going to look through the whole thing tonight. But during a long discussion about something or whatever, if you want to take a peek at these things, please do so. One side, general terms and definitions, and then the other side is the flow of the meeting. What I do ask is this. If it's a kind of a document that you want to keep and you want to take it home, please do so. If, on the other hand, you're thinking to yourself, I'm just going to take it home and toss it in the trash, please leave it back at the table out there so that others can have it. I would really appreciate that very much. And again, like the warrant, if 2 people from one family have 2 of these and you wanted to, it would be really great if you could go and put it out there, because I think they may be running out of copies of these. So, thank you. So again, the general format of the meeting is we have a warrant. The articles will be posted up here as we go through the meeting. For each article that we have, somebody will make a motion for that article. And then if it's financial in nature, the Finance Committee will then make a recommendation. And if any boards need to make recommendations, I will ask them for that as well. After that happens, we will have a second. If that hasn't happened yet, I will then ask the mover, that's the person who made the motion, they essentially have the first bite at the apple. If they want to start talking about their motion, they can, or they don't have to necessarily. It's up to them, but they always have the first shot at talking about things. After any discussion that we have, we will then have a vote. Okay? The bulk of the votes happen are voice votes. I then make the call from those voice votes, either yay or nay, and then we go from there. There are procedures to have secret ballots and things like that, but that is what it is. Let's see. If you want to make any amendment to a motion, so let me put it this way. It's really important that if you're thinking you might want to make an amendment to something, or even if you don't think you might, but you end up doing it, you need to have a piece of paper and a pencil so you can write it down. Okay, because I need a written copy of whatever the amendment is that you want to make to the motion. And keep in mind, amendments are minor changes to a motion. So it doesn't deal with totally restructuring what the motion says. Those are not amendments. Those are different motions, essentially. So minor adjustments are amendments. So, if an individual wishes to speak about the motion that's on the floor, you see the microphone up here. Basically, if you've been here before, you just pretty much get in line and we go from there. Okay? Say what you have to say, and then you're done, and then the next person comes up. Now, for those of you who came to the annual town meeting this year, some things happened that, quite frankly, haven't happened in the past with respect to using the microphone. People would speak to a motion, and then someone after them would get up to speak, and that individual, for lack of a better term, was in close proximity to the other speaker, making them feel uncomfortable. I did what I could to sort of deal with that, but I realized I need to do things a little bit different. So, this is how it's going to work. When you're done speaking at the microphone, you can do one of 3 things. You can, 1, go back to your seat. 2, go to the back of the line. Or 3, if you think that you may have to answer a question that might come up soon on the motion, I have 4 seats up here that have the word reserved on them. Thank you. I appreciate the chuckle because you were probably here at the last meeting. So therefore, when you're done speaking, you cannot just stand next to the microphone and stare at the person who's speaking next. Make sense? You either sit down here, go to the back of the line, or sit down back in your chair. Those are your only 3 options. Any questions? Good, thank you. Now, just a reminder, when you do speak on a motion, you don't want to speak directly to any individual who's spoken before. So you can't say, you know, Joe doesn't have any clue what he's talking about with what he said. You can say, Mr. Moderator, through you, I have some concerns about some of the things that the previous speaker said, and this is how I feel on the issue. It sounds a lot better, and that's how we need to have it. Good. Let's see. Also, only one person can speak at a time. Basically, that's how the meeting works. So you can't interrupt a speaker unless, let's say, you can't hear them. Okay? So those of you way in the back, I assume you can all hear me back there, right? Yes. Great, thank you very much. Good. If at some point you can't hear myself or the speaker, just give me a wave or yell, can't hear you, and then we will take care of that. Okay. So the last thing I want to say is this. In terms of the decorum of what you say. We usually don't have any issues, but some issues with respect to people speaking inappropriately. But once in a while, we get heated, we get passionate, okay? It's okay to have passion. What's important is to have control of our passions when we speak, okay? So, if for some reason someone says something at the microphone that's not appropriate, I will simply say, sir or madam, stop speaking and step back from the microphone. I will then inform them of what the issue is, and I will ask them if they could resume in a more appropriate tone. If they say yes, I will allow them to continue. But if the infraction continues, I will then ask the individual to take their seat. If they choose not to take their seat, then I will ask them to leave the meeting. If they choose not to leave the meeting, then I will ask the chief of police, who's back there tonight, to escort them out. Okay? I've been doing this almost 27 years now. I've never had to come close to asking anybody to leave the meeting. Once or twice, I have had to ask somebody to step back from the microphone. So it happened once in a while, but over 27 years, that's not bad. So for the most part, we're a good town, and we know why we're here for town meeting to talk about the issues at hand. And I appreciate that a great deal. Once a year I meet with other moderators, and let me tell you, I hear some stories. But you all do a good job, and I appreciate it. So, one last thing we want to do is accept the visitors. So we have some more? Very good, thank you. So we have a number of visitors here, so let me get through reading them all. Yes?
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Yeah?
Michelle Israeli, 148 South Street.
Yeah?
Can you just explain, you and I have discussed this, that when somebody has a question about how the vote is called under a voice vote, that when they stand to challenge the moderator, that indeed they're expressing the fact that they heard something differently, and that 6 more people would then rise to ask for a different count. So when you have 27 years experience as you have, and I have 5 town meetings, this is my 5th under my belt, it's very intimidating for me to stand and challenge, but I'm indeed expressing my concern about what I heard. So I would just ask you to explain that, or am I
Okay.
understanding that correctly?
I'm happy to do that. So, the question dealt with the voice vote, my call, and whether or not the townspeople heard it differently than I did, let's say. So, this is how it basically works. When we have a voice vote, I want you to share passionately how you feel. If you are in favor of something, you say aye. There you go. If you're opposed to something, you say nay. There you go. I hear that. I make a determination whether the ayes or the nays have it. I'll share a secret with you for those of you, maybe if you've been here a long time, you might already know this. Every time I call a voice vote, I hold my head down like this. So I'm not looking at anyone in particular. I'm just listening to what I hear. Okay? If it's overwhelming one way or the other, overwhelming A, I say it passes. Overwhelming nay, I say it fails. If there's any doubt in my mind, I will say we need to have a standing count. And that happens once in a while. That's okay. That's part of the town meeting process. Now, those of you who are visitors, I'm sorry you can't say yay or nay or stand or anything. That's just how it is. So, the question that came up is, if I make a call and you don't agree with that, You have the right to say, Mr. Moderator, I challenge your call. You have the right to do that. Now, so you have to stand up and say, Mr. Moderator, I challenge your call. If 6 other people agree with you and they stand up, challenging the call, and you have every right to do that, then we will have a standing vote. Make sense? Okay, so, to the speaker's point, I'd like to think that, those of you who know me, know that fairness is very important to me, and I don't want anyone to feel intimidated with regard to if they didn't think they heard it the right way. Okay? Please challenge if you thought my call was wrong. But I will just say this cautionary note, please. If you know your side lost, don't stand up and challenge the call just because you're mad that your side lost. Because what happens is, we need to have a standing vote, and then it's going to be like 90 to 30. Do you understand my point? Please, use that judiciously. Use it if you didn't hear it the same way that I heard it. You've got the right to do that. Please do that. But don't do it just because you're mad and you know you lost that vote. I would appreciate that. So, I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, good. All right, so visitors. All righty. Matthew Batso, Library Director. Representative David Moradian. Stephen Sloan, SVT. Devin Braun from Kaplan. Dennis Westgate, DPW Director. Tim Deschamps, Mosquito Control. Michelle Sanford, Town Crier. Lauren Goldberg, Town Council. Derek Brindisi, Town Manager. Lori Savick, Pastor of the United Parish. Janice Nowicki. Michael Fallon and Lee Fallon from Green Lane, that's great. Kenny Coster, accountant. Jim Willets, Luke Variable, Raymond Martin, Britta Seligman. Oh, I know some of these folks. Gloria Profeta, Fire Chief DeFons. Fire Chief. I'm sorry, say that again? DeFranzo, thank you. Craig, Banishtal, Paige Alcott, Abigail Paul. Amongst these people who are visitors, I'm going to guess a number of them are students, and that's great. So for students, thank you very much for coming. And anyone who's a visitor, I'd like all the visitors to just, I will vote on this in a minute. Why don't we do the vote first, and then we'll do the next thing. So, all those in favor of these visitors, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Now, our visitors or students, for the first time, if you're a first-time visitor to town meeting, please stand up so we can give you a round of applause. Okay, Madam Town Clerk, am I done with all this stuff, you think? Okay, thank you very much. All right. So, Article 1. Who has the motion for Article 1?
I do, Mr. Moderator.
Okay.
Brett Simus, 7 Barbara's Path. I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $5,000 to supplement the town's conservation fund.
Second? Moved and seconded. FinCom recommendation?
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Favorable action by the FinCom. Any discussion on the motion? Sir?
Mr. Moderator, I understand the term David.
Whoa. Be nice, guys. Okay, we got it. Maybe the mic's not on yet. It could be as simple as that.
Select. Is that the button?
Oh, it's on.
David Brooks, 3 Cranberry Circle. I understand the term free cash is a term of accounting art. And Mr. Moderator, would it be in order to ask Mr. Treasurer to explain that in terms that may make more sense to
Sure.
people who does the word free? Thank you.
Thank you. So, since the money's coming from something called free cash, if the accountant could explain in layman's terms what free cash means, please. Yeah.
penny cost to the town account. Free cash, it's not free and it's not cash. That's a misnomer. That's actually a DOR terminology. Actually, it's a financial indicator. So at the end of the fiscal year, we have revenues that come into the town, we have expenditures that go out. Conversely, you can have positive free cash, which is a great thing. It's a good thing. That means you're managing your money well, you're doing a good job. You can also have negative free cash. That means you're deficit spending, you're spending money that you don't have. So if you hear positive free cash, it's a great thing. So, and free cash, another way to think about it, it's like your savings account. So you're saving up money, it's one-time money. Most people, they don't use that money to buy groceries or to fuel up your gas. That's the general fund, that's the operating account. So at annual town meeting, like the fiscal year 20 budget, essentially think about that's like your checking account. That's money going in, money going out. At the end of the year, after all your bills have been paid and all the revenue's been collected, that's the money that's left over at the end of the year. So that's free cash, just keeping it simple. And at the end of the year, that free cash that you don't appropriate or don't spend, it rolls into the next year. So for example, last fiscal year, we had about $800,000 that we didn't spend in free cash, and that rolled into this fiscal year, which is a great thing. And I'm sure this question is going to be asked, so I'll offer it now. I'll let everybody know now. So the free cash that was just recently certified for fiscal year 2019 was $2,194,149 for the general fund, just for everybody to know. But in a nutshell, it's a financial indicator. If you want to think of it, just keeping it simple, it's like a savings account. Okay?
Thank you. Okay, any other discussion on the motion? Mr. Flaherty, real quick.
While my good friend, Mr. Accountant, is...
Please use the microphone, Mr. Flaherty. I appreciate that, thank you.
Right, Mr. Moderator.
There you go. Just leave it.
Mr. Moderator,
Thank you.
through you, my good friend, Mr. Accountant's on a roll over here. While he's talking about free cash, can you maybe just say a couple sentences about stabilization, because that's going to come up on it too.
Well, again, really quick, these are general type statements. Since the question came up, as some people want to know. Go ahead, please.
Stabilization account, that's another type of reserves. This is DOR terminology. One way to think about it, it's like a CD. It's a rainy day fund. So if the town's in distress, if there's something that the town is looking to do, they can appropriate. They can use that. It's a 2/3 vote to appropriate out of the stabilization account. But essentially, it's like a rainy day. If there's something that the town needs funds for a certain project, or there's a deficit, or for example like snow and ice. If we have a really bad year like we did back in 2015, and there's some communities they did appropriate out of stabilization account, so that way it wouldn't put too much of a stress on the operating budget. So that's another use of stabilization account. But it's another reserve. It's a good savings. The GFOA, they look for about 3 months of operating costs to be set aside. But it's another reserve. I would view it as like a CD.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of $5,000 for the conservation fund, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 2 comes in 3 parts. So 2A is Richard.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer from the Community Preservation Fund fiscal year 2020 estimated annual revenues, the sums set forth below, as you can see on the screen, for the historic resources account, the open space account, and the community housing account, and to place any remaining fiscal year 2020 estimated annual revenues in a so-called fiscal year 2020 undesignated budgeted reserve.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Finance recommendation?
Very relaxed, Mr. Moderator.
CPC recommendation?
Favorable.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. 2B.
Article 2B, Steve Nattalian, 161 South Street. I move that the town vote to transfer the total sum of $296,575 from the Community Preservation Fund to meet the 6th year payment of debt service owed on the general obligation Town Hall renovation bond, with $47,000 coming from the Historic Resources account and $249,575 from the Community Preservation undesignated account.
Second motion.
Moved and seconded. FinCom recommendation.
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
CPC recommendation.
Favorable action.
I just have a quick note here. On the article, it says 7th year. The motion says 6th. Is there a typo one way or the other? Which is the typo?
I believe it's the 7th, if I'm not mistaken.
So it should be 7th year. Is that correct? Okay, so, because it says 6th on the motion, I just want to make sure it's the 7th and not the 6th. It's the 7th. Okay, everyone's saying 7th. So, the typo was in the motion, so as a friendly amendment, we could make it a 7 instead of a 6. You guys okay with that?
Yes, I will amend the motion to the 7th year.
Second amendment.
Thank you very much. So that means we just saved $296,000. Okay, any other discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 2C.
Bill Taylor, 211 North Street. I move to approve Article 2C as set forth in the warrant and as funding therefore and for the costs and expenses associated with the acquisition to transfer from the Community Preservation Fund Open Space Reserve the sum of $410,715, provided, however, that the funds appropriated hereunder shall not be expended unless the town is allotted a land grant from the Massachusetts Division of Conservation Services or other grant program or receives donations totaling no less than $234,429.
Okay, second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. CPC recommendation first.
Favorable action by majority vote.
Favorable action by the CPC by majority vote. Finance Committee recommendation.
Unfavorable action by majority vote.
Unfavorable by the FinCom. Okay, any discussion on the motion?
Capital Committee.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that is down here. Capital Budget Committee. Sorry.
Unfavorable.
Oh, unfavorable by the Capital Budget Committee. Okay. So we open it up to discussion.
Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
I actually have a presentation I'd like to give beforehand. Is that okay?
Well, okay, yeah, okay. Mr. Desjardins, if it's okay with you, we will allow the presentation first. So, yeah, Mr. Taylor, please. Usually, if you're not at the microphone, I assume that you don't have a presentation, but if you have a presentation, that's fine.
I'm sorry, I was letting you gather your recommendations.
Thank you very much. Okay, go ahead.
Again, Bill Taylor, 211 North Street. So I'd like to describe the project. So the intent is to conserve 48 acres that has frontage on Mechanic, Fowler, and Warren Streets. We are going to purchase with the Department of Conservation and Recreation a conservation restriction on the property, and that is a right to permanently protect the land. That conservation restriction will include permanent public access to parts of the land for trail and fishing easements. And one of the features of this is the land remains in private ownership so that the owners will continue to pay property tax on the land on its open space value. The conservation restriction has been appraised at $619,000, and the owners of the land, the Robertsons, are offering that to us at $500,000, so it's a bargain purchase price. And the net cost to the town is $176,286. That's 33% of the project cost, and it's all coming out of the Community Preservation Fund, so there'll be no impact on property tax.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions?
I have 3 pages. The benefits include protecting natural resources. Warren Brook, which is the blue hatched area, is a cold water fishery and part of the Upton water supply. The whole area is within an area of critical environmental concern. It's mapped as core habitat and habitat for 3 rare species. The fact that it's an area in the area of critical environmental concern and the biomap 2 core habitat, those are designations by the state of areas that have particularly high conservation value. The benefits also include public access to the easements for passive recreation, including hiking and fishing. It is an opportunity to extend trails. There's an undeveloped property to the west and an undeveloped property to the south that we could conceivably run trails over. And it abuts Upton State Forest to the east, and the north there, it abuts Steffens Farm. The white line that appears on the map there is a proposed trail. Clearly helps us maintain Upton's rural character, and it also helps us preserve a historic mill site. That land there is also, when they did the gas pipeline, they discovered ancient Native American sites on the land, and it's likely that undisturbed portions of that land also have undisturbed Native American archaeological significance. And then finally, this is the project cost and how we're going to pay for it. The conservation restriction is $500,000. As I mentioned, it's appraised at $619,000. There's fees totaling $35,000 for a total project cost of $535,715. DCR is going to pay $125,000 with us to purchase the conservation restriction. The warrant article is $410,715. We have been awarded a land grant already. So after we pay for everything, the land grant will reimburse us to the tune of $234,429, leaving a net spend from the Community Preservation Fund of $176,286. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or discussion on the motion? Okay. Mr. Desjardins.
Mr. Moderator, I was going to amend.
Can I come closer, Jay?
Mr. Moderator, I was going to make an amendment,
Okay,
but things have been explained to me,
okay,
and I will leave the mic.
okay, no problem, thank you. Yep. Mr. Bates?
Jim Bates Jr., 14 William Street. Would we be allowed to hunt on this property?
Okay, can we hunt on the property? Mr. Taylor?
The hunting will be a permitted use within the conservation restriction. So hunting for the area that's, hunting will be permitted by the owner and the easement holder. If you approach the owner and they permit you to hunt, you can basically hunt on the whole property except for the easement. The easement will be under the control of the town of Upton and the Department of Conservation and Recreation. And currently, both entities permit hunting on their land, and that would be the case with the easement area.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Mr. Bates?
Yes, Mr. Moderator. I'm unaware that the Robinsons have ever allowed hunting on their property. But I can tell you this, folks. We purchased Steffens Farm, and we can hunt there. We purchased Warren Brook, and we can hunt there. And the first large parcel of land this community purchased was Peppercorn Hill, and we can hunt there. And there are absolutely no restrictions. I am not in favor of this. I love Mr. and Mrs. Robinson. They're great people and stewards of the town of Upton. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion?
We're at 167 Mechanic Street. For this parcel of land, the most northern part of it, what percentage of that is waterlands protected by federal?
Mr. Taylor, do you know the answer to that question?
I don't know the answer to the question about how it might be protected by federal regulation. It is virtually entirely wet. About 12 acres of the whole property. So in any case, that's the answer, it's about 12 acres.
Okay. Any other questions?
I I just wanted to respond to one of the previous commenters' observation that we won't be able to hunt on this property. Conceivably, we won't be able to hunt on this property, at least the bulk of it. There are a lot of different ways to protect land. And generally speaking, we've done it by purchasing the land outright. And we've permitted residents, the public, to hunt on it. In this case here, we've purchased the conservation restriction, which leaves some control of the land to the owner. Now, one of the benefits to the town is that we pay less for the land. So we probably, the difference between the conservation restriction and the total value of the land is about $200,000, so we save that. The other thing is that land will continue to generate property tax revenue. So notwithstanding that we may not be able to hunt on it, there were some benefits to the town as a result of this.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Mrs. Terrell.
Charlene Torelli, 148 South Street. To the chair, I actually have questions for Val. You talked about the biohabitats and the protections needed for some of the critical mass. Don't those things stay in play regardless of whether or not there's a preservation restriction? As in, doesn't the Conservation Commission still control what happens with critical habitats?
Well, the short answer is no. The Conservation restriction, I'm sorry, the Conservation Commission is responsible for what, it's not the whole property.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Tom Baer, 2A Pierce Lane. I'd like to hear from the Finance Committee why they drew the conclusion they did.
Okay. FinCom, please use the microphone.
It was a majority vote not to recommend. There were, I think those who voted no each had different reasons, perhaps, for that. My particular objection was that the town already has an awful lot of land. And just going out and buying up land is not the way that I think what the town should be doing. I understand that the property still collects, generates revenue from the property tax. But the other issue was how many lots, perhaps buildable lots, were there. What was brought up at the Finance Committee meeting tonight, I'm told, was not really 100% true. But when this came up, the committee didn't have a quorum to discuss it, so there was nothing that really could be done with that. So the majority vote was still no.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion?
I'll just speak on behalf of the minority vote of the Finance Committee, if I could, Mr. Moderator.
Sure.
The minority position was that this is a great deal for the town, and we'd be silly to pass up a great deal. It's not often you can buy something of this nature at such a reduced price. At the end of the day, I think it's going to cost us $176,000 out of our Community Preservation Fund, which is exactly why we have these funds, is to buy this kind of property. So it really seemed like a no-brainer.
Thank you.
Lower the microphone a little.
That's okay.
Elisa Burnett, 228 Menden Street. First of all, I want to thank Mr. and Mrs. Robertson for their generous offer. I think it's just a wonderful thing that they're offering. I have heard no objections other than individual arbitrary objections. I totally agree with the minority voter on the Finance Committee. If someone hands us something that costs us nothing in taxes but gives us beautiful land to walk on, to let our children play on, to let our grandchildren play on. Why not?
Mr. Bates?
Mr. Moderator,
You folks can come down a little bit closer so that you can be in line.
I don't have the specific numbers of state forest in presently owned town of Upton land, but I think we're in 28%. It is an absolutely beautiful parcel of land, but unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, can't support the acquisition even though it may be a good deal because of the restrictions. That's my concern. If there were not these conservation restrictions on it, I would have been over to John and Cynthia's house, 100% endorsing it. I cannot support it because of the restrictions.
Ma'am?
Kathy Dodd,
Speak up, please.
sorry, Kathy Dodd, 33 Mechanic Street. This parcel is beautiful and it's in my neighborhood, so I know about it. I'm not a hunter, so that issue of whether you can hunt on it doesn't so much matter to me, and I'm sure there's a whole bunch of people in town that would prefer that maybe. I don't know, like, you don't necessarily want to be walking in woods where you know hunters are looking. So I don't know if that is, valid for everybody. But my thing is, if this parcel isn't purchased by us, then what will happen to the land? And it seems to me that it's going to go to development houses where it's a residential zoning in that property. So then it's not going to be a benefit to really anybody but maybe the people living there. And we'll lose this beautiful parcel of land. So I'm in favor of it for those reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Hi, I'm Abigail Paul. I'm a student. So I guess I have a question regarding the majority vote that I wonder why do you think that this land could possibly be, okay, so in other words, sorry. So this land you may think that could have residential and profitable building purposes, but it has the stream and a water sources, and some of the land doesn't seem to be able, or most of the land doesn't seem able for construction. So why do you think that this would be a good, I don't know. I'm wondering why you brought up the point of building on this land, and I'm wondering how much is actually built, if possible to be built on.
Do you understand that question, FinCom majority?
I did.
I think it has to do with why, how much land can be built on it? Oh, Mr. Taylor can answer that question. Thank you. Ma'am, if you could just take a seat, please, thank you.
Yeah, so the appraised value was based on there being 8 frontage lots.
Okay.
I think the issue that Mr. Flaherty alluded to was there is some concern that the land would not support septic systems.
Okay.
The owners did have some test pits dug, and they actually had the same soil as there's a lot that was just a sewage system built on it. So same soil. So the land can support residential development. And the basis of the appraisal was that it would be 8 lots.
So 8 lots if it were to be sold residential to people who could build.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question, but great. Okay, good. Thank you. Ms. Antonelli?
Hi, Michelle Antorelli, 148 South Street. I have a couple of comments and then a question. First comment is, for $176,000, this seems like quite a deal. The only comment I would have about that is that that's more than 18 years worth of taxes, property taxes that I personally pay into this town. So that's a lot of money. I know compared to the 535, it looks like it's a steal of a deal, but it's a pretty significant amount of our tax money. As far as the Community Preservation Fund, we've all paid into that. That's not free money, folks. And lastly, my question would be for capital. Could you explain the nature of your position on unfavorable action? Thank you.
Capital budget?
Hi, Dan Lazaris, 10 Farrar Road. Capital was a 3-to-1 unfavorable. Primarily the same comments from the other speaker. We have an abundance of land. The project is not identified in our capital plan, and we are becoming aware of a lot of potential capital projects, including open space that could be related to the town center and recreation master plan.
Thank you. Mr. Andrews.
Mr. Andrews, Bill Andrews, 84 High Street. We've had a nice long discussion. Several people have been able to come up several times. I'd like to move the
Move the question? Okay. Is there a second? Second. Okay, so on your blue sheet, if you haven't had a chance to read it yet, moving the question means that you've heard enough discussion about this and you want to then vote on it. So if you want to do that, you'll vote aye, which means you've heard enough, and then later we'll have a vote. If you want to hear more, then you'll vote no, which means you want to hear more. This requires a 2/3 majority vote. Mr. Turtle? There you go. So that's the motion that was just made. So if you've heard enough, you say yay. If you want to hear more, you say no. So all those in favor of moving the question signify by saying aye. Aye. No. Motion carries by 2/3 majority. We will now vote on the question. So just to be sure, the vote is to buy this parcel of land, okay, for the... Well,
It's a conservation restriction, not land.
oh, thank you. So conservation restriction, what all those smart people about the land said about it, not what I'm saying right now. The financials are to the right, okay, Community Preservation Fund, okay, there's going to be a land grant, et cetera, okay, yes.
Can I just ask a question? Can somebody describe the difference between us purchasing it and the difference between purchasing and the conservation? Like, are we purchasing this or?
Good. You know, that's a really good question. What's the difference between us purchasing this and doing whatever it is that we are doing, the land grant thing?
Okay, so if we purchase the land...
Well, you know what, This really is a point of order. And because I made a statement which was incorrect, which means I don't really understand it myself. So we need to just clarify the difference between purchasing and what this is, and then we need to vote on it.
All right. So the options are, the other option would be to buy the land outright, and we could do whatever we wanted on the whole property.
Right.
The conservation restriction basically prevents anything except open space activities being done on the land. And in this case, it includes the permanent public use of certain portions of the property. And frankly, from my perspective...
Well, don't give an opinion. Just answer the question, because we have gone beyond it. Really. You just have to answer the question. So
that's the difference.
That's it. Great, thank you. Okay, good. We're going to vote on it. So, we all set? Okay. All those in favor of the motion regarding this property, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. Okay, we have to have a standing vote. I cannot make the call. So, those of you who I've talked to already about helping me with standing votes, please come forward. And those of you who maybe I haven't gotten in touch with, who I've used in the past, please come forward. I need at least 6 people to help me with this. Thank you. Okay, so that is do this. Very good. Denise, thank you. Folks, if you could please quiet down, thank you. Okay, I'm going to break it up into three sections. Okay. One section is going to be this side and the back. That's a lot of people. This side and the right side of the back. That's the biggest voting block that we have here, okay? Good. The second section is going to be in the middle, here, Finance Committee and the state. Got that? That's the middle section. So the last section is way over to the left side, and the back. Follow me? Oh, the back is way up the top. The whole section in the back. Counting the people who are sitting in front. So when I say the back, it's the people sitting in front here, okay? So, oh, not the visitors, they can't vote. Right, exactly. So, you two want to take the second chapter? Then come on stage. Is that that? Right. And it's important that you get the exact thing out yourself. So, let's see. We're going to take this section here, okay, in the back. Okay. I got pencils here to do. Okay. That's it. That's right. And the back. And we should try to do the first one since I'm coming up. No. You have to do both sides of the mouth at the same time. That way you can confirm each other's vote. Yeah. Yeah, and then no. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So, this is what's going to happen. We're going to count it in three sections. Well, we're going to all stand at once, but essentially, there'll be two people counting in different sections. So 2 people will count this side over here, and you non-resident, you have to sit down, right? And 2 people will count the center up to the stage, 2 other people will count the side and up to the back that way. We will count them all at once, okay? So what I ask that you do, when you stand up, please be quiet. They have to confirm with each other that they have the same count so that we can do this right, okay? And I believe that is it. So.
And then what?
Then after that, I'll ask the noes to stand up. And then we do the exact same thing.
Or they ask you to sit down, Mr. Moderator.
Well, after the yes people have voted, they will then sit down. Then I'll ask the no people to stand up.
With all due disrespect,
Right.
you told everyone to stand up, so that's why I'm asking the question, David, and
Thank you.
I
No.
apologize, sir.
That's okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for shutting the doors in the back. And everybody needs to be in a seat in order to be counted. So anybody who's standing back there, if you want to be counted, you need to sit down so that we can count you. Okay? So I ask that everybody do that. You have to be in a seat in order to be counted. All right. All those in favor, please stand. Please be quiet, folks. Please sit down. All those opposed, please rise. Ladies? Oh, everybody sit down, please. Yes, sure. Thank you. Okay, you keep the paraphernalia. Sure. Side. Two. Okay, good. Got it. Thank you. Okay, the vote is yes, 187, no, 102. The motion passes by a majority. Next article is Article 3. Motion for Article 3, please.
Article 3, Maureen Winnell, 154 West River Street. I move that the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to acquire by gift, purchase, or eminent domain for the general municipal purposes a parcel of land containing .17 acres, more or less, together with the buildings and improvements thereon being Assessors Map 201-074, located at 6 Main Street, and transfer from free cash the sum of $195,000 for such purposes, and all incidental and related expenses, including but not limited to demolition and site preparation. And further, to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into all agreements and take all related actions necessary or appropriate to carry out the vote taken hereunder.
Been moved and seconded. FinCom recommendation.
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Favorable action by the FinCom. May I have the motion, please? Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Thank you. Capital budget. That's correct. Sorry about that. Thank you. Mr. Bates?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Real simple. Do we know what's on this property?
Okay, someone's asking if we know what's on the property. So, who would like to speak to that issue? Question.
Good evening. Good evening, Derek, this is Town Manager. Just clarity, you're asking what's on the property. Right now, there's a four-family dilapidated building structure still remaining on the property.
Well,
Okay, Mr. Bates?
Derek, I don't think it's dilapidated. It looks pretty good to me. I'm talking about oil tanks. Oil tanks, boilers, other contaminated soils and things as such.
Mr. Bates? Mr.
Yeah,
Mendoza, do you want to
so we
address
know
that?
that the building is wrapped in asbestos. We
Good.
also know the building has lead paint in the building as well. We've actually put the structure out to bid in anticipation of those questions, and we have a bid of $75,000, which is contained in this article to remove that structure.
Okay, any other questions? The point of order, Madam Town Clerk.
Mr. Bates, you realize this is 6 Main Street, not 8 Grove Street?
Kelly, I'm sorry, I don't.
Okay, just making sure.
All right, so somebody has to help me.
Well, okay, it's 6 Main Street. So it's the old telephone office, for those of you who were around back when we had telephones.
So this is 6 Main Street?
Mr. Brindisi, this is 6 Main Street. This is
This
the
is
one
the
that's-
structure, this is why I call it dilapidated. This is the structure that if you were standing at Town Hall, it'd be to the right of the Milton Esteem Building, the library. So
Okay.
it's the four-family building that's been held vacant for approximately 20-plus years.
The one with the big
That's-
red X.
That's the building we're talking about, Mr. Bates.
I want to apologize to everybody in this town. You would think after being here 5 generations, I would know exactly which building we're talking about.
Thank you, Mr. Bates. Thank you. Ms. Haggerty?
Mr. Moderator, Lynn Haggerty.
A little closer, please.
Lynn Haggerty, Sideville Lane.
You can move the thing down. Yeah, go ahead.
Lynn Haggerty, Sideville Lane. Why are we buying this? What's the purpose? What are we gonna do with it?
Big picture. Why are we buying it? Somebody try to give us an answer to that, please.
So this is the parcel that's contiguous with the library. So as part of the downtown revitalization, there are many options we have for the building. The first thing we're going to do is demolish it and turn it into green space while we figure out and come up with a finalized plan for the downtown. But things that could be done with it, you could just use it as a municipal green space. You could sell the parcel privately to a private developer and let them do something with it as part of the revitalization. So there's a lot of things that can be done with the property, and there haven't been any decisions made. It could be combined with the library parcel next door as parking or something like that. So it just depends on what the overall vision is for the downtown.
Okay?
Does that help?
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other discussion? Mr. Flaherty.
Mr. Moderator, through you, might I ask the town manager to further comment? There is an opportunity for a grant to reduce the cost, and perhaps Mr. Manager could address that.
Great.
Sure, thank you. So as I mentioned earlier, in anticipation...
Gotta turn the mic on. We'll get there. Just gotta hold it down.
Let's try this again. So the purchase price is $115,000. So we currently have a purchase and sale agreement on this. In anticipation of this evening's vote, we put out to bid the demolition of this property. The lowest bidder came back at $75,000, given the hazardous materials that are associated with the structure. And we were turned on to the Attorney General's office has a demolition grant, and we have since applied for that. They will award potentially the town up to $25,000 to help defray the cost of the demolition of the structure.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion?
Gene Burnett, 228 Mendon Street, Chairman of the Economic Development Committee. And the question of use, one of the bigger elements of the downtown revisioning project was to make traffic safer, and one of the key elements of reducing the traffic danger in that site is potentially rerouting Grove Street and closing off the end of Grove Street so that we don't have a five-way intersection there, and bringing Grove Street in back of the library. So it's a critical component of the potential traffic pattern development that we want to see in the downtown area.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Ms. Antinarelli.
Shelley Antonelli, 148 South Street. So my concern is that we have not yet identified the purpose of this lot. I understand that there are 4 possibilities that have been discussed. One of them, as the previous speaker noted, would be changing the flow of Grove Street and emptying out to 140 at that location. I do know that that is not a certainty, that there are questions remain as to whether or not there's enough room to do that. I know that beautifying downtown is a possibility. I know that extending the library or the library area as a possible deal for a developer, and or if the library municipal center doesn't pass, being able to renovate and add on to the library. The major concern I have at this point is that this is, I'm sorry, Holy Angels 2.0. Why are we in the real estate development game? Why are we trying to purchase something? This has been for sale for a long time. Tonight, hopefully, as we approach another article, we talk about increasing the value of downtown and rezoning and looking at how things are going to look down there. A developer would probably end up purchasing it outright instead of us going through the time and energy to clean up and the costs associated with that. So until we have an identified purchase, I really can't support this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bates, before you get to the microphone, to the town council, if I could ask a quick question. Given the fact that it's transferring from free cash available on appropriate funds, does that mean it only requires a majority vote?
No, sir, because it's money to acquire an interest in land, so it's a 2/3 vote.
Okay, so it's because we're purchasing land, that's what makes it a
It's the
2/3.
appropriation of the money to purchase the land.
Okay, thank you. So this does require a 2/3 majority vote. Mr. Bates?
Mr. Moderator, ladies and gentlemen of the town of Upton, I promise you that you will never hear me speak again about what the intent of what we're trying to do here tonight. I don't support it, and I will not waste any one of your time anymore other than to vote yes or no on articles.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Maureen Byrne, 158 Westboro Road. I would like the town to consider, if in fact this passes and it is going to be demolished, that the granite capstones underneath, which have some monetary value and historical value, be salvaged and kept at the DPW for any further projects downtown, like walls or et cetera, et cetera. And just to consider, you know, when they're speaking with the demolition crew about setting those aside and transferring them over to the DPW.
Great comment. Thank you very much. Mr. Holman?
Alfred Holman, 48 Mechanic Street, through the chair. Just as a point of clarification, for years, the Board of Selectmen has been trying to buy this building, and this is the first time that it's become available. It's an eyesore. The Board of Health has walked through it. It's terrible inside, not rebuilt, it cannot be functionally used for anything. So, in my mind, the best thing the town can do to improve the downtown visibility and the way the town looks is to buy the land and use it for something else, for another purpose, whatever the four purposes are. That's the best way to take care of this. So I support it.
Thank you. Mr. Andrews? No, you are not premature. We've had a lot of discussion on this.
Okay, I would like to move the question.
Okay, let's move the question again. Sorry, there's a motion to move the question, so we'll see what happens. If the people don't vote to move, what it means is that we might cut off debate. Sorry, so we'll wait and see what happens. So, motion to move the question, it's been seconded. If you want to move the question, you say aye. If you don't, if. Boy. Yes, Mrs. Moderator. So, and if you want to keep talking about it, you vote no. So therefore, all those who want to move the question signify by saying aye. Aye. No, motion carries unanimously. So again, the vote is purchase the land. If you want to purchase it, you say aye. If you don't, you say no. It does require a 2/3 majority vote. So, all those in favor of the purchase of this land, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The motion carried by a 2/3 majority vote. Article 4. Article 4. Mr. Baxter. Oh, you're not making the motion. Right, somebody else is making the motion. Who's making the motion for Article 4?
I move that the town vote to
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $700,000 to fund the procurement, design, development, construction documents, and bidding phases of designs for the proposed construction of a municipal community center building. And further, that the town building committee appoint in accord with the town bylaws under the direction of the Board of Selectmen will at the conclusion of conceptual and schematic design phase meet with the Economic Development Committee, Finance Committee, and Capital Budget Committee for review and recommendation to the Board of Selectmen for progression to the construction and bid document stage.
FinCom recommendation?
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
FinCom recommendation?
Favorable action?
Capital Budget Committee?
Favorable action.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Debbie Amarelli, 28 Marion Way, a member of the Municipal Feasibility Committee.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I get it. As long as you get closer to the microphone.
All right. Is that better?
Yeah. Better.
Okay. All right. So I just want to let you, we have a short presentation here, just a few slides. The Municipal Community Center Feasibility Committee was formed in August of 2018 by the Board of Selectmen. The purpose was to investigate the need to construct a new municipal facility that would address aging and outdated structures and improve on the delivery of community services, specifically the library, elder services, and human services. Our members include library trustees, council on aging, capital budget, our library director, and our director of elder and social services. The committee concluded the town should create one shared facility to house the library and elder and social services. Our next step was to hire an architect to produce conceptual designs for a new facility.
You want the next slide? I don't know.
There are a number of reasons we came to the conclusion that a shared facility is the best choice. Both the library and senior center are more than 40 years old. Both facilities are small and cannot serve the current needs of Upton residents. And both buildings have access barriers and are not ADA compliant. We also believe a new facility located downtown will be a gathering area for the town, serve as the hub of social services, and it will create an anchor for the vision citizens have created for downtown. And finally, we believe housing the two departments in the same facility will allow both departments to provide better services. There are a few advantages to the design that we have chosen, our preliminary design. The space is flexible and allows for growth. A one-story layout helps keep staffing to a reasonable level. Residents can access multiple services at one location, and this facility is a public space that residents of all ages can use.
Bill Taylor, 211 North Street. I'm going to continue the presentation. I am also a member of the Municipal Community Center Feasibility Committee. So in September, the committee decided to present the playground site, the parking lot site, as their recommendation to town meeting. One of the reasons is that as a town-owned site, of course, it saves purchase and development of another property, privately owned property. The conceptual design that the architect prepared for us shows that it preserves 80% of the existing playground. It was also an opportunity to make the existing playground ADA compliant. It is not at this point. The new design has 40 parking spaces, and that would permit us to partner with, we'd like to partner with the VFW to host community events. This is the conceptual design. As you can see, the area to the top there, which has the library collections and lounge, is all one big space. There's a large program room with a kitchen on the right-hand side, reception area, restrooms in the center there, and then on the left-hand side, there's a conference room surrounded by staff spaces, and to the left up there is a small room. So there's plenty, there's several spaces where the public can meet. We can present programs, the library can present programs, the elder and social services can present programs, and there are offices where individuals can meet privately with staff members. Next, please. This shows the...
Can you turn that 90 degrees? Oh no. No. Yeah, because you see it's...
So this is the parking and playground site. The parking area is obvious, and then to the left of that is the playground. So this is the site that this will be. We're proposing that this building go on. Next, please. And this shows how it will fit on the site. Next, please. Elevation, we will acknowledge that whatever design we ultimately come up with is going to have to meet the new design standards, which we'll probably talk about, we will be talking about later. But this is the conceptual design that the architects prepared for us to give people a sense of how something might look on that site. Next, please. And that's it. Oh, sorry, no, next steps. So the first thing we're going to do is revise the conceptual and schematic designs for the lot. And then there'll be a process which is described in the motion where that work will be reviewed and approved by the Board of Selectmen's recommendations from various committees. Assuming we get the permission to proceed, approval to proceed, phase 2 will be development of construction and bid documents, and then solicitation of construction bids. Based on the conceptual design, they're estimated and cost estimate with that projected cost that would need to be financed is $8.6 million. And this includes building construction, playground and parking lot construction, and several contingencies. It's estimated the new building will add $15 per year to the current average tax bill. And the way that works is we have roughly $500,000 in the retiring debt. The new debt associated with the 25-year, $8.6 million amount would be $541,000. That additional $41,000 would add $15 to the current average tax bill. So for a house that's worth property worth $450,000, today's tax bill is about $7,790. With this, it would be $7,805. And of course, the debt exclusion itself would be subject to a ballot vote. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussion on the motion? Okay. Mr. Holman?
Alfred Horman, 48 Mechanic Street, through the chair. The United States of America has been very remiss in improving its infrastructure for years, and as you can see that in every state and every town in the country, bridges are going down, and the inside of communities are going down, and things are being reinforced and rebuilt. For years, the boards of selectmen in this town, at least since I've been in town, have always moved forward on improving the infrastructure of the town, i.e. the high school, the fire station, the police station, the DPW. They've always been, the boards of selectmen have always tried to be ahead of the infrastructure to keep it in place. This is a prime example of infrastructure improvement and improving the downtown center of the town and moving forward. So I firmly support this because it moves our town forward and gives us a capability that we do not have today. Thank you. I support it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Mr. Henderson?
Dick Henderson, 95 Warren Street. No, I'm sorry, I'm at 20 Brook Street now. I would just, as they move forward with the architect, I'd just like to have everyone look at the plan and look at the exits. I'd like to have everyone look at the plan and look at exits to this building and where people exit to and where their marshalling area is. We have one entry to the front of the building. We have four to the rear. One goes to Route 140. For a public safety official, I would not approve this plan as it is. Can we show the board? I think that people coming out of this building need to get away from the building in an emergency. So as you move forward, please do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Craig Weinfuss, 8 Hazeltine Road. Just to clarify, so the $700,000 is just for the engineer's report, or to kind of consider how much the building will be? And then do we have a rough idea of how much we expect the building to be?
I think it's at 8.6 million. Is that about right? Is that right, 8.6 million approximately? Yeah, 8.6.
Great, thank you.
So yes, the total cost of the project is 9.3 million. The 700,000 is for the engineering portion of the project.
Great, great, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Well, if you, yeah, go ahead.
Just the previous,
That's right. You didn't break anything. Just go ahead. You can take it off. That's fine.
the conceptual design is not been finalized.
Right.
So I think that the previous speaker had questions about exits and whatnot. There hopefully will be plenty of time to finalize that, but right now, these are just conceptual plans.
Understood. Yes. Ma'am?
Ann Viversky, 250 Milford Street. I'm here to encourage people to support this motion. For people who've been in town for a while know the idea of a new library has come up again and again, and unfortunately been voted down for various reasons, or
Sure.
when it was possible, there was no land. And there really is a need in town both for more space for the library and more space for the senior center. And people might not know, I think the senior center now is down to maybe 6 parking spaces. 40 years ago, maybe driving to the senior center wasn't a problem. Today, more and more seniors are driving. And anyways, I hope we pass it this time. Thank you.
Marcia Kreslowski, 10 Whitney Lane.
I
have a question about the amount. The $9 million is for the building shell, correct?
Is that approximately for everything, the $9 million? Mr. Brandisi? Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Matthew Bagtold, Library Director. The $9.3 million is a total project cost, so that's all the site development, the building construction, everything inside. It doesn't include furnishings and equipment, so chairs and tables, but everything other than that is included in $9.3 million.
Since the furniture and fixtures and so forth aren't included, do we have an estimate? Because since it's a combined use, we're not available, grants won't be available to us.
I want to try to address that.
I can try. This is very speculative. A lot of decisions have not been made yet in the design process as to exactly what would be in there, what can be reused from the current facilities. A building this size to outfit for a new library, furnishings and equipment, probably a couple $100,000, 200, 300,000. And if the project goes ahead, that sort of cost is a great opportunity for fundraising to happen, to go out and get private fundraising.
Okay. Ma'am?
Now that we said yay on buying 6 Main Street, why couldn't we split the library and the other elder center to separate spaces instead of building one giant monstrosity?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, so I guess what's your question again? Be more specific about your question. I'm sorry.
So we just said yay to buy 6 Main Street, which is right behind the library.
Correct.
So why couldn't we turn that and revitalize that into a library instead of building one giant monstrosity? And now thinking about as we're all getting older, everything is just going to technology. So even though I love reading a paper book, that's going to be a thing of the past. So we need to think forward instead of backwards.
Okay, whoa, folks. Come on. Thank you very much. I appreciate your comment. Sir?
David Brooks, 3 Cranberry Circle. Phrase senior center has been used. That has 2 meetings now. Upton is growing at 2 edges. Rockwood Meadows has 103 people over 55. Upton Bridge will have, I think, about 250. So we're attracting seniors like me who semi-retired or retired but still have the energy and don't need the senior services but would like somewhere to go during the day. And sadly, right now, we have to go to Medway or Ashland or Mendon for a senior center where we can sit and play bridge or mahjong or talk. I really like the idea of having a building in Upton that can attract the newer residents of the town who have just moved in the last few years and have time and money and interest to be able to come somewhere where we can meet, gather, enjoy time. And also I see that as a northern anchor of the downtown redevelopment. So all of this is the beginning of having a way of bringing these new residents who are literally on the edges of the town right now into the town of Upton so they feel part of our community and don't feel like they're being pushed away for their own recreation. So that's another aspect in which for active adults, which is the new word for seniors, I'm going to see value. I can see value in voting on this.
Mr. Moderator, okay, ready to 5 million. So my question is, this does not include any of the infrastructure. It doesn't include any of the infrastructure. This is just the building, just the concept of the building. So there's not, and it doesn't include any electrical, no sewer, none of that. And it's just a concept, and this plan came out of, it was first originally at 8 Grove Street, and now we're sticking it, the same concept, onto another piece of property. Am I correct?
I don't know.
Somebody can answer my question, please? Or to the chair?
I guess the question is this the same thing that was proposed at 8 Grove Street? That's the question?
First part of the question is, it doesn't include any of the infrastructure. And to the chair.
I think it does, in fact, include inside the building. It would include plumbing, electrical. I believe in the estimate when I read it, IT service, IT infrastructure inside the building. It would include. Now, whether or not it includes water and sewer hookup, that part I do not know. I'm thinking we probably are going to have to extend. The sewer, I think, ends somewhere in the center of town by the church or Thompson property. So, but I believe water runs right in front of that property. I believe there is town water there.
Mr. Brindisi?
I'm reviewing the proposed construction cost right now, and there's a utility back charge for $25,000, which I believe is appropriated for the utility hookups.
So just to clarify, the actual motion for the 700,000, that's not for the building, okay? What your question is dealing with has to do more with the 8.6 million for the building itself. Is that correct, Ms. Haggerty?
My question had more to do to the drawings they're asking for. Is it going to include all this? The infrastructure in, the piping in, the piping out, all of it?
Got it.
Is that
Okay.
these drawings going to include that?
Thank you. And
Okay,
I'm hearing yeses here for that question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Spargo, 57 Harvard Avenue North. I had a question regarding the Historic Society that's there currently now, and what are the plans for the spot for that?
Oh, so what happens with the
Yeah.
historic, right?
I can address some of that, because it's a question that's come up repeatedly as we talk about this design, what happens to the Historical Society, Historical Museum, sorry. So in the short term, it will stay exactly where it is in the Knowlton Racine building. Potentially, if the library moved out, they could then have access to more square footage in that building. If at some point in the future, the town was to dispose of or repurpose or reuse the Knowlton Racine building, I would assume a home for the Historical Museum would be part of those plans. I know every town official I've talked to has been committed to finding a home for the Historical Museum. I've heard some ideas floated out there. I'm not going to mention any of them now. I don't think it's appropriate to talk about the merits of those, but I don't want to say I can assure you, but I can say every town official will help find a home for the Historical Museum before anything happens to the Knowlton Racine building. Just because the library moves somewhere else doesn't mean that building automatically goes away.
Okay, thank you. Sir?
Kevin Valancourt, 6 Henry's Path. Quick question about the playground. It says that 80% of the playground will remain, and I heard it was going to be now ADA compliant. Is this all new equipment, and is that part of the overall budget?
Anybody want to answer that one?
So yes, that 80% number is based on square footage. It's not necessarily the exact 80% of the current footprint, but currently there's 16,300 square feet of playground. The conceptual plans call for 13,300 square feet. And yes, there is a line item in the $8.6 million to put new equipment and possibly a new resurfacing on that playground.
Thank you. Madam Town Clerk wants to speak to this also.
Kelly McCowath, 11 Maple Street. So what, I just want to do a point of clarification to our previous speaker's question about the furnishings. We did just quickly look at the cost estimate that we got, and it does include furnishings and technology of $350,000. So it is included in the $9.3 million project. In regards to the 700,000, correct, it doesn't build, the 700,000, what this motion is pertaining to, doesn't build us anything. But as we may all be aware, to build anything for municipalities requires a lot of paperwork. Engineering plans, plumbing plans, electrical plans, and that comes at a price. And that's what, so the 700,000 will represent conceptual plans, schematic plans, construction plans, and it will get us to bid. So once we spend this money, we will have documents that we can go out to bid and build this building.
Thank you. Mr. Andrews?
Mr. Andrews, 84 High Street, I'd like to move the question.
Is there a second? The moved and seconded to move the question. We will have a vote on that. And again, we'll see how that goes. So, all those in favor of moving the question, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. Motion carries by 2/3 majority. We will now vote on the question. So, the motion derived from Article 4 for the $700,000, as we've been talking about here, is what's on the table to vote on. So, this requires a majority vote. Is that right, Town Council?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. No. No. The motion carries by majority. Article 5 is withdrawn. Oh, there's been a challenge to, they want to have a count. Let's see. Okay. All right, 7 people have stood to challenge the call. We will have a standing count. So, the 6 folks who helped me before, if you're all still here, please come up, please. I appreciate that. Like last time, you need to be in a section in order to vote. Okay, and I'd like to ask that the doors be shut in the back while we're having the standing vote, please. All those in favor, please rise. start in the middle, folks. Please. All those opposed, please rise. Okay, so everyone, can I have everyone sit down, please. The vote for the motion from Article 4, 215 yes, 72 no. The motion passes by a majority. Article 5. Someone got the motion for Article 5, please? Oh, I'm sorry, Article 6. Steve,
Article 6, I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash a sum of $12,000 to be used for the purchase of 2 replacement laptops for the ambulance and related equipment, including all incidental and related expenses.
Second motion.
Moved and seconded, FinCom recommendation.
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Favorable action by the FinCom. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 7.
Ken Golwalking, 15 Hickory Lane, Treasurer Collector. I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $9,500 to fund the payroll expenses of a department assistant position for the Treasurer Collector's office.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded, FinCom recommendation.
Favorable action.
Mr. Golwalking, can I have the card, please? Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 8.
I move that the town vote to authorize payment of the following unpaid bills of the prior fiscal year for the current year department budgets as previously appropriated. The Department Collector Services, $221.52. Public Works expense, $267.27.
Second motion.
Moved and seconded, FinCom recommendation.
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Golwalking. Now, I've been doing this for 27 years. Something's happening right now that's never happened before. It's an oddity in that, well, not when I've been moderating this thing. When you pay a previous fiscal year bill, it requires a 9/10 majority vote at a special town meeting. Okay? So, if it's not unanimous, we have to have a standing count. Am I making myself clear on this one? Thank you. So, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 9. Article 9. I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash a sum of $3,710 for the purchase of 2 cardiac monitors, defibrillators, including all incidental and related expenses.
Second motion.
Moved and seconded. FinCom recommendation.
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Favorable action by the FinCom. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 10.
Kelly McKelvith, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $7,500 for the purpose of providing information technology, IT support services related to the security support and maintenance of the town's computers, servers, website, email, and related IT infrastructure, including all expenses and incidental and related.
Second motion.
Been moved and seconded. FinCom recommendation.
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Article 11.
Article 11. I move that the town vote to transfer from the retained earnings of both the wastewater division and the water division the sum of $31,192 for a total appropriation of $60,384 to fund the salary and benefits of 1 additional operator to be shared between water and wastewater division.
Second motion.
FinCom recommendation.
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 13. Article 13.
Article 13, I move that the town vote to transfer from the Water Division's retained earnings the sum of $122,000 to fund the Fowler Street Bridge replacement, water main extension, and associated work, including all incidental and related expenses.
Second. Moved and seconded. FinCom recommendation.
Favorable action, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by majority. Article 14.
Hello, Shelley Antonelli, 148 South Street. Prior to addressing this article, I would like to make a motion to address this article by a secret ballot.
So let me ask you a question. Do you want to make the presentation first and then make a motion for a secret ballot?
Well, no, because actually, Dave, you advised me to sort of get this out of the way so it wasn't confused with what we were voting on before. So,
Hang on. We discussed this.
Okay.
But the last thing I said is that it's your decision to make where you want to do it.
Right.
So what you're saying is that even before you make a motion, you want to have it as a secret ballot?
Yes.
Well, okay. You have to at least make the motion first.
Okay.
But after that, if you want to have the question about a secret ballot before the presentation, you're certainly well within your right to do that. That make sense?
So, sure.
Okay.
So, Article 14, I move that the town vote to amend Title II, Chapter 1, Section 11 of the Town of Upton General Bylaws as set forth in Article 14 of the 2019 Special Town Meeting warrant.
Second.
Do you want me to read the rest of the?
Well, why don't you read what it is that is happening?
Okay, that's the motion part though, so I need to hand that to you, correct?
I'm sorry. That's it? That's the whole motion?
Yes.
Okay.
So we have to go back again. Actually, I have it. Okay. So,
You need to state what it is that this, I don't know why we don't have the actual motion up there.
here it is.
Thank you. Yeah, the next one. I want what the motion says, what's happening. Like,
Okay, to see if the town will vote to amend Title II, Chapter 1, Section 11 of the Town of Upton General Bylaws by inserting the underlined language and deleting the strike-through language as follows. I believe you have that, Sandy. So it says, the strike-through is, when a question is put, the sense of the meeting shall be determined, right there, shall be determined by the voices thereon, and then inserting here, when a question is put, the vote shall be counted by electronic voting technology, if available. If electronic voting technology is not available, then the moderator shall call for a voice vote, and the moderator shall declare the vote as it appears to him.
okay, that's fine. Everything else is the same. Right. I just wanted to make sure that people knew that it's about electronic voting. Great, thank you very much. Is there a second to that motion?
I second.
Okay.
The motion is now on the article itself, because I can't make the motion on the secret motion until this secret ballot is done.
I just want to make sure we have a motion on the floor.
Okay.
The motion on the floor is to have electronic voting. Okay, now, has there been a second? There's a second. So, at this point, now my question for you is, do you want to make the presentation or do you want to have a motion for a secret ballot?
I want to have a motion for a secret ballot.
Okay, you are well within your right to do that. So, before we have a discussion on the motion itself, is there any question about, there's been a motion made to have a secret ballot. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, good. So, now, the discussion now is going to be whether or not we're going to vote on this by a secret ballot. We can have discussion on that. After that, we will then have a voice vote. And if it's clear one way or the other, either yes, we'll have a secret ballot, then we will, or no, we won't. Okay? So, thank you. So right now, the discussion now is going to be the merits of whether we should have a secret ballot on this one or not. Okay? So, who wants to speak first? Ms. Antonelli?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So, very simply put, Mr. Moderator, as a member of the committee, you were both very honorable and your integrity was well noted, and we very much appreciate the fact that you participated. As part of our discussion, however, we realized that some people may question or feel uncomfortable with the fact that Mr. Moderator is moderating this question.
Well, actually, I wanted to speak to that, but go ahead.
The committee agreed that we had no problem with him moderating the question, but we really felt that to protect his integrity, to protect anybody that had any question about whether or not he was influencing the vote or had any bias about the vote or had any questions, that we would rather protect him. We've had him for 27 years. We want to preserve his reputation. We want to preserve the whole idea of voting here at town meeting and speaking and being comfortable with our vote. So rather than even, one of the part of the discussion that Mr. Moderator and I had was that he actually hoped that nobody would oppose this motion, that the secret ballot would be held primarily because, well, actually he can speak to maybe why he thought that was important. Personally, I feel it's important because one of the questions as we start to talk about electronic voting, one of the questions we have is whether or not it's transparent.
Folks,
Whether or not it's
gentlemen, step back, please.
whether or not it's a transparent process. And again, that's a question that is only going to be totally protected in this particular situation by having a secret ballot. So I hope that everybody supports this motion because it is both to protect the moderator and it's also to provide clarity for anybody in this group that has any question about whether or not the vote is complete and accurate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So before we have another speaker, Mr. Bates, if you can just pardon me a second.
Of course I will, sir.
What I do want to do is just state my position on the committee. Okay, so let me just make I have a written statement. I'll say that right now, and then we'll go from there. So, as town moderator, I was an ex officio non-voting member of the electronic voting committee. My function was to give the committee some insight on what may be involved in this process and to inform them on some of the issues that other communities have seen when they have considered this question. Moderators from other communities have served in a similar fashion on an electronic voting committee. And then they performed as moderator on the question, which is what I'm doing tonight at town meeting. Lastly, after the committee finished its work, I asked the members if they were comfortable with me serving in this position, and they all said that they were. So that's a statement I wanted to make at the beginning of this discussion. So that's my statement. It's okay for me to moderate this, and so that's that. With regard to other comments that were said about anything else with regard to secret ballot or not, I really don't want to comment on that at all, okay? Comments were made, and that's fine. I totally am okay with that. So, Mr.
Moderator.
Town Council, yeah.
Yes, I just wanted to confirm, there's no conflict of interest for you to moderate this portion of the meeting at all. You have no financial interest in this question, and ultimately the merits of whether people want to have a secret ballot is entirely separate from any action that you may take or not take.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bates, about whether to have a secret ballot or not, okay, not the whole question.
You might get ready to call me out of order.
Go ahead. Well, please, Mr. Bates, we've known each other a long time, and I know you know when you need to stay in it.
With all due respect.
And you spoke about 45 minutes ago, and you said something.
The verbiage on the card. The verbiage on the article card.
Mm-hmm. This is...
Is it to see if the town will vote to amend, and let's go. And that's it. There's nothing else on the motion card.
Okay, the motion... Okay, what was up on this?
And if I'm wrong, please, sir,
Okay.
tell me to sit down, because David, I will. You know that.
Okay, we haven't got to have the discussion on the motion in general yet, okay? So, the question's premature. So right now, do you have a question on whether or not we should have this by secret ballot? That's my question for
I do
Mr.
not.
Bates.
Thank you, David.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Andrews.
Bill Andrews, here for High Street. I'm actually not going to move the question. I'm simply going to say I'd like a nice, efficient, well-run town meeting. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, for doing that for 27 years. We don't need a secret ballot. I'd love that this is an open meeting, and I would like to speak for an open meeting that's not kept secret. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Holmes, on whether or not to have a secret ballot.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm supposed to talk about.
There you go.
Alfred Holmes, 48 Kingston, through the chair. I would agree with the previous speaker. We've had a lot of contentious votes over the years, and we've always been able to settle with a county standing vote. secret ballot is just a long, drawn-out thing, and we get the same place with a standing count. So I would not support a ballot.
Okay, any other discussion on whether or not this motion, after we've discussed it, should be by secret ballot? Yes, ma'am.
Nicole Antonelli, 148 South Street. I do believe in the secret ballot. Speaking through Mr. Moderator to the crowd, being a voice in a crowd is one thing. You can blend in and say what you feel you need to say or not. Through secret ballot, it's more private. It protects your privacy that way. And if you do decide to stand, you may change your opinion, which is your right. However, you may feel the pressure to change your opinion because customers, family members may judge you differently, and it could affect your business or your making a living in this town. So I support secret ballot because of the privacy, and you can stay true to what you believe in and not be influenced by the rest of the crowd. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Mike Vallon, Green Lane, Upton. I think if you're going to have an open vote on how to spend the money in the town, there's no reason why you can't have an open vote on an electronic vote.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, so again, this is a vote for whether or not you want to have a secret ballot after we've talked about the motion for electronic voting. So if you want to have a secret ballot, you'll say yes. If you don't want to have a secret ballot, you'll say no. Is that clear?
Point of order,
Yes?
according to what I read the current rules, this motion requires 7 seconds. Do you have that?
No, this is not about that. Okay, that's a different thing. Okay, so is it clear then what you want to do? If you want a secret ballot, you'll say yes. If you don't want a secret ballot, you'll say no. Okay, so all those in favor of having a secret ballot signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The motion is lost.
Mr. Moderator?
So,
Mr. Moderator?
yes?
If I may, can I explain both the motion and what this article would do if it was approved, please?
Are you talking about the secret ballot question we just did, or the other thing?
No, this article that's pending right now, the motion that's on the floor, and what it would actually do if it were approved.
Well, you know what? The mover of the motion wants to make a presentation, I believe, so I would rather have them make their presentation first, so that we all have an understanding of what it is we're talking about. Then, if town council, you feel as if you want to speak on it, I would be fine with that.
The first comment was simply about the motion that's pending, just because I know there had been a question about that during the previous.
Oh, I understand. Okay, fine. So you want to clarify what was on the screen versus what wasn't on the screen, and stuff like that. So, I think that's an important thing for her to clarify that as town council.
So just to be clear, I just copied and wrote this exactly so I can read it exactly to make if that clarifies the issue for everybody.
Mr. Moderator, the motion as it was drafted is perfectly fine to accomplish the goal of the article. It said, I move the town vote to amend Title II, Chapter 1, Section 11 of the Upton General Bylaws as set forth in Article 14 of the 2019 Special Town Meeting warrant. And this is what was in the Special Town Meeting warrant. So the motion was simple, but it's saying it's going to make all these changes.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure the townspeople were clear about what it is that they were going to be voting on. Thank you very much. Okay, so that was just a clarification. You have the floor.
Thank you. So, do I have to restate the motion, or are we all set?
No, you're all set. We have a motion. There's been a second.
So let me give you the motion part.
Oh, sure. Thank you.
With all the language.
That's fine. That's fine, yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So, actually, we're on the previous slide, I believe, Sandy. So, to be clear, I wanted to introduce and thank members of the committee who served on the electronic voting committee. It consists of, it's the next slide, please. Keep going. Keep going. There we go. So it's me, Lynn Haggerty, Al Holman, Marcia Kozlowski, Dave Laper, as he indicated, served ex officio, so he was a non-voting member, but very important to our council, and Steve Rafkin. I think it's important that we recognize, first of all, that this committee worked very hard between March and September, meeting and debating and deliberating, and it offers a nice mix of people who are both new or newer to town meeting and people who are very seasoned with town meeting and seasoned with town politics. I think it's important that we realize that for those of you who have been present and been acting in town meeting, you definitely feel more comfortable with the process, and the people who are newer definitely feel less comfortable with the process. So I have to say, as much as debate got a little heated at times, it was really important that all of these people be part of this committee, and thank them for that. Next slide. So the mission as given to us by the Board of Selectmen was to investigate the mechanics and the merits of electronic voting for our town meeting. Next slide. We looked across many dimensions. We looked at accuracy. Key to realizing things as we think about electronic voting is recognizing that we are very lucky to have Mr. Moderator as our current moderator. He served for 27 years, but we have to realize that his experience is unique to him, and that at any point he may choose not to run. He may choose not to be our moderator next year. He may not be elected next year. He may lose his voice. He may lose his hearing. So all of, I'm sorry.
What'd you say?
Sorry. What? All of those things mean that we need to think more globally about the accuracy of the voice vote. And if you read the committee report, you would realize that the voice vote, unless there is more than a 2/3 difference, the voice vote among moderators that were tested and evaluated is not reliable. So that was one of the questions I had at the very beginning. If you hear something different, because indeed Mr. Moderator is doing his very best and it has served him well, but at any given point, no matter who we're sitting next to, we may hear something different. The second point has to do with efficiency, the efficiency of our meetings. For the most part, as many people have realized, we have very quick votes on some issues and we have prolonged votes on other issues. Using electronic voting, we had a 12-minute period where we had to do a standing vote, and then we had a second 11.5-minute period tonight where we had to do a second vote, a standing vote. So efficiency means that those, at the very longest period of time, if we had done them through an electronic voting system, they would have been 30-second votes and we would have had our numbers. Privacy. I certainly respect that when we come to town meeting, coming up here at the microphone, you sort of put yourself out there and you take a risk. Not everybody does it. And I don't blame them because it's pretty scary, quite frankly. But when it comes to the voting part, everybody should be able to vote their conscience and vote their heart. And that's very difficult to do for some of us. It's difficult to yell. It's difficult to make it clear to people around you what you're thinking and how you're feeling. And we have a private vote in every other respect of our lives. We go to the ballot, we vote privately. When you join Masonic halls, they have the black ball vote where they actually put marbles into a little canister, and so people can't tell how those people are voting. There's a reason for that. If you are a small business here in town, you don't want to alienate customers that feel differently from you. If you have a family member who's on a different idea about what should be happening in town meeting, and yes, I do have to talk to one of my daughters later tonight because she didn't vote the way I wanted her to, we can avoid some of the heatedness around those discussions by offering privacy. When we talk about costs, I'm going to get into that later on, but the electronic voting for tonight, if it passes, will cost us nothing. The transparency of the voting process, again, an electronic vote gives us a precise count. It gives everybody the same information at the same time. This is the count, this is what it was. And it also offers information for people who are not here at town meeting, like, gee, if I had gone, they only needed 3 more votes to get that passed, and I could have helped. Voter participation. One of the things we sort of hoped from this committee in our study is that we would find out that after you implemented electronic voting, a town had greater participation rates. We can't say that. And as Mr. Moderator, you yourself pointed out, the data on that is a couple years out. So we can't claim that that's
and outcome of implementing electronic voting. We were also to look at policies and procedures, and I'm happy to say that we looked at very many other town reports, and we actually have a really good handle on what policies and procedures need to be implemented. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Accessibility, electronic voting addresses accessibility across many dimensions. If you're deaf or hard of hearing, you don't have to decide, gee, was that more people who said yes or more people who said no? You simply know by looking at what the displayed vote count is. If you're blind, you have access to the same information that everybody else is, which is when you look around, you can't tell who voted, and neither can anyone else. So the last part is the workload and support, and I'm going to go into that a little bit further. So the activities were the anonymous voter survey. If you voted last year in the elections, the ballot elections, there was a survey there. We had observations of other town meetings, and I'm happy to say all committee members participated. We looked at numerous reports from other towns, both as they studied it and also after they implemented electronic voting, some of the snafus they ran into. We looked at the sociological and scientific literature, and again, just reaffirming that the voice vote is not considered a reliable way to collect data and to collect the vote. And then we had moderator and town clerk input, and thank you, Dave and Kelly, for supporting that and checking in with other town clerks and other moderators. Kelly herself answered several questions, and you guys will not be surprised that her biggest concern was about what would happen if electronic voting didn't go well, and if that would discourage voters, because that's the kind of person she is. She is really for participation and supporting all of our voting people. Next slide, please. So the merits, that was what we were asked to look at. It's efficient, it's precise, and it's an unbiased method to collect the vote. It reduces the possibility of human error. It reduces the possibility of intimidation because nobody knows how you voted. It completes the historical record for people that don't attend town meeting, and it increases transparency so everybody has the exact same information about how everybody, or exact information or lack of information about who voted for which. And then it offers the independent access for people with hearing impairments, visual impairments, people with speech delays, and people with processing impairments. So when we talk about some of the things that we can do here at town meeting to welcome people with different kinds of impairments, the key here is we're always talking about helping them to do something. When we talk about electronic voting, we don't help them, they do it themselves, which is something that every New Englander, I think, wants. Next slide, please. So not to belabor this, we're not asking for any money tonight, and there's a specific reason for that. But I had so many people say, well, what is the ballpark? Well, here are our ballparks. The three major systems that we looked at vary between $9,200 for 400 units to a high of $17,198 for the same 400 units. I will note that the middle runner there, Meridia, that's the system that Uxbridge uses. They have lifetime technical support and training. So I'm not advocating for any one system over any other system. In fact, I think it's really important that we pass this electronic voting bylaw so that we can trial all of these systems before we make any monetary expenditures on this. Next slide, please. So, key here is that this bylaw change will allow us to trial electronic voting. It does not require a purchase. It only requires that if we have the technology, that we use it. So we have an opportunity to try different technologies, to try different options, and decide, is this the right thing for us? We can rent. So we have 2 free trials that were promised, but we could also rent any other, or trial any other, besides the free ones, any other systems. We could cost share with another municipality. Mendon has already expressed interest in this option, which would reduce any costs by 50%, so that would, at the lowest, be about $4,500, or at the most be about $9,000. Obviously an outright purchase. And last of all, grant funding. We electronic voting technology addresses the needs of access for people with different impairments, and it also talks about building IT infrastructure. Those are both areas of grant funding, and we may not pay $1 for the system that we really want. Next slide, please. So, really, if you read the report, you know that it was universally supported by town clerks and moderators that we spoke to and got feedback from. The town clerks reported only positive feedback and actually had some voters who were initially opposed to it request electronic voting, and it supports the purest form of democracy. So everything else stays the same. We still have people like me coming up here and quaking at the mic. We still have people making mistakes. We still have people getting a little bit heated in discussion. The public discourse remains the same. The only thing that changes is that everybody there feels comfortable making a vote. Next slide. So the concerns that some members of the committee expressed had to do with participation. Does electronic voting solve a problem around participation? We don't know. We don't have the answer to that question. Privacy regarding recording votes with names. Actually, the technology is set up that you don't have to link any particular device with any one person, so there is no need to do that. Security. There's concern about hacking the vote. I think it's really important to realize that the committee had 2 members of the technology committee with a great deal of technology background as professionals, and it was very clear between the 2 types of system. There's one that's internet-based that offers more vulnerability points than the ones that I have the quotes for. The ones that I have the quotes for are based on radio frequency at a fixed distance, 200 to 400 feet away, to registered devices. So I'm not telling you that nobody can mess with the vote, but I'm telling you they would probably have to be in the room doing it. Staffing needs and costs. This should be a concern, except for one thing. All of the vendors that I spoke to said, yes, we could send a tech out, but it's a plug-and-play system. So you don't need a technologist on staff. You don't need to have that kind of support. You plug it in, it works. It's kind of like a DVR. If we really had some technical difficulties that members of the technology committee couldn't address, I imagine there's some Xbox players out there that can probably fix it for us. The last part is there a need? Well, one of the things that happened when we did the survey is that we asked, is there some reason that you would not feel comfortable voting at town meeting, or some reason that you don't come to town meeting? And 12% people wrote in issues about privacy. So the question is 12% a lot of people? Well, it kind of undercounts the 12 because we offered several options and we left a blank. So anyone who expressed concerns about privacy had to think about it and write it in. So the amendment to the bylaw tonight just provides for electronic voting to be the primary method when devices are available. It allows us to trial different devices. It provides a reliable backup. Under this amendment, whenever a device is not available, we simply revert to the way that we currently do things. Just as a note, it's really important. We need a 2/3 majority to change this bylaw. Does anybody have any questions about electronic voting?
Okay. Thank you. Before I entertain questions, town council, this is a town bylaw change, correct?
General bylaw, yeah.
General bylaw, so it only requires a majority vote, correct?
Correct.
Okay, fine.
Thank you for the correction.
Right, it's a majority. What you might have been thinking about is zoning bylaws require a 2/3 majority vote change. So that might have been what you were thinking about when you did the
Oh, you're
2/3.
so graceful. No, I just thought any bylaw change required a 2/3 vote.
And in most groups in this country, that's the way it is, but not for town bylaws. It's just a majority. So, thank you. Yeah. Okay, good. Within the last week, so the Finance Committee said that they might want to make a comment regarding this. So Finance Committee, do you want to make a comment or not?
Just briefly, Mr. Moderator.
Okay, thank you.
Can I speak without the microphone, Mr.
Well,
Moderator?
please use the microphone word. Sorry.
Generally, the Finance Committee doesn't opine on bylaw changes. However, going forward, this is going to have a cost. We didn't know exactly what the cost was. It appears to be a moving target at this point. And the other question was the last line where it says, if the technology is available. Well, if this is a budget item, somehow got into the budget and then got voted down at the budget time, then the voting technology is not available. So until we could find more specifics, the Finance Committee's position would be unfavorable action. Like I said, it is not monetary at this point in time, but going forward, it probably will be.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? You can.
I'm not
Thank
sure.
you, yeah.
I actually feel very passionately.
Sure.
I love the town meeting process. I think it's more efficient. If we're looking for efficiency of time, then as you spoke earlier about when you lose a vote, don't be a sore sport and ask for a count. That would make us more efficient. But I am against this particular one. I don't trust anything electronic. I trust you, Dave, more.
That's my position is irregardless on this, however I might feel. So go ahead, sir.
Matt Welch, 4 Fisk Ave. So actually, I'm relatively new to the town.
A little closer,
I'm sorry.
sir.
A little bit taller.
Please.
So, Matt Welch, 4 Fisk Ave. So, to the point, I'm actually relatively new to the town myself, so I understand people's concerns about getting up and speaking in front of a crowd of 200 plus people. I feel that nervousness right now. I took some notes, but
Gentlemen, could you back up just a little bit, please?
so a couple of concerns of mine. So I definitely respect your desire for anonymity, but my concern would be transparency and the ability to audit trails, especially if these are considered, these votes would be anonymous with no names. There would be no ability to see if a hacking event occurred. That's a major concern. As it stands right now, the nation itself is moving away from electronic voting and trying to move towards paper ballots because of the risk of hacking. I think one thing that hasn't been considered is the check-in time. Tonight there was quite a line coming in. Although this would save time over votes, you would still have to check in to receive your device, which would add to the overall meeting time. I'm not sure if this would encourage people to speak like I am right now. Although you may feel more comfortable voting your conscience, getting up here and speaking in front of the town is still pretty intimidating. Also, another concern would be voter error. It's very straightforward when you're saying yay or nay, but if you're not able to see, or if you have a hard time pressing buttons on the voting device, you could accidentally cast the wrong ballot on top of any potential hacking. So those are my concerns.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Edward Bergman, 6 Shore Drive, Upton. I have 2 questions, one about the motion and one about the system. The one about the motion, it seems to read that if we vote yay, that electronic voting will become the primary means of voting before we have a chance to try it out. Is that right? Or do the trials happen and then on the basis of the trials, it becomes the primary means?
Good question. My understanding is that if you vote yes for electronic voting, then that's what the town will do when it has the technology to do electronic voting, if the town votes yes on this.
So it's not clear to me if we acquire a system and it turns out to be unsatisfactory, what's our recourse?
I don't know if anybody wants to address that. Michelle?
Hi, to be clear, the whole point of passing the bylaw is to actually trial electronic voting. If we bring devices in here and they don't work, we're obviously not going to vote to purchase them. If we bring devices in here and we try one device at one meeting, we try another device at another meeting, we may choose between those systems, or we may say it's just not right for us. We cannot trial electronic voting here at town meeting without this bylaw change. Does that make sense? So, we can't. So we can't. Under the current laws, we can't bring in electronic voting and use them for a meeting and say, yes, we like it, we want to vote for it. So this is an opportunity to trial it. If we don't end up liking any of the devices, we don't vote to purchase them in a budget.
Does that answer the question, sir?
No, it doesn't.
No, okay.
And the reason it doesn't is that the bylaw requires it be the primary means, not an optional mean or an alternative mean. If we're to trial it, it can't be the primary mean. Because if it fails the trial, we've lost the vote. Vote could be invalidated. So could this motion be rewritten to do exactly what she suggested, which is to allow for a trial, a non-binding vote, a non-binding meaning, to allow the people to see how the system works, if it works, if they're comfortable with it, if it does what's promised. Is there a way to modify this motion to accomplish that?
May I,
The town clerk has just spoken to town council, and she may have a comment on this. Madam Town Clerk?
Yeah, I just spoke to town council, and she agreed with me that if we wanted to pilot some type of this program, we could take a vote at the beginning of the town meeting that we would vote by electronic means for that town meeting, and then we could pilot it and then make the decision if it was something that we wanted to move forward with based on financial concerns and whether or not we liked it without actually having to change the bylaw at this point.
May I just address that as well? I think that the way that's worded actually gives us an extra degree of security there. You have the ability now, once it becomes a bylaw, to, again, trial some systems at no cost to the taxpayer. There's at least 2 systems where we can actually take them, bring them in, use them for a meeting, and see if we like them. As it's written, it says where available. So now, as FinCom had raised the question, what happens if a warrant article is put forward? Let's say it is $17,000. If the people don't like the way electronic voting works, you simply vote against the article. Now, you have a bylaw change in place, but you don't have the equipment. So I look at that as one possible solution, or if you didn't like it, you could, of course, change the bylaw back and strike through what we have currently changed, and what is currently proposed. So those would be 2 ways, I think, that you could actually hedge your bets, in my opinion. Okay, thank you.
The bylaw says that we'll use the equipment when available. There's no clear definition of available. Does available mean that we could buy it, that somebody is offering it to loan us, or that we have it in hand? And I think that needs to be clarified.
Okay.
So I actually have a question through the chair for council. If we talked about changing this bylaw or striking the article, or putting down the article, and we voted at a given town meeting to trial a particular product, can we then, at the subsequent town meeting, vote to trial multiple products? Because my concern here is that there are different products out there. They all offer different strengths and weaknesses, things that we may not want or not want. So is this something that we could repeat, is my question.
Town council, could you help us with this? Maybe you've dealt with this with other communities.
Mr. Moderator, through you. In my experience, many communities have done trials of electronic voting systems without changing their bylaws for that purpose first. And they do have bylaws that are similar to yours that designate a particular mode of voting. As the town clerk indicated, we would suggest something along the lines of voting at the beginning of the meeting to utilize the equipment, and that such utilization would be the substantial equivalent of a hand vote for that, of a voice vote for that purpose. And that would allow you to try out what you want to try out. If you wanted to amend the bylaw to allow any mode of voting to be permitted, that's also a possibility. Although this bylaw deals with electronic voting, this amendment, but in the future, an amendment could be made to allow the meeting to determine how it's going to cast its votes.
Okay.
So I'm not sure I heard my answer. We can do this more than once, is that correct? At more than one meeting?
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
For you. Yes, in my opinion, the town can try out electronic voting at meetings and decide whether it wants to use it. It can happen more than once.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully, I don't know if your question's been answered, but we do need to kind of keep moving things along here.
No, I just want to register the objection that this is forcing us to use the equipment rather than trying equipment out. Second question is how reliable this is. We've seen in previous national elections objections to the results based on failures of electronic voting. And these aren't necessarily catastrophic failures where it goes down, but failures in the sense that the electronic equipment incorrectly reported votes for whatever reason. I haven't seen anything that says precisely how accurate these systems are. I've just heard an assertion that they're accurate, and that's vague.
Okay? Mr. Holman?
Then do I have to give my address?
No, you're all set.
Oh,
You've already
okay.
spoken, sir.
Through the chair, to the moderator.
Yep.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now, sir.
I can swallow it. Several things. First of all, my belief is the basic form, the most basic form of democracy is what we're doing right now. Not a ballot, electronic voting. What we're doing now, sitting in a room, debating an issue, talking about it, and then standing up and voting for it, or voting against it. Number two, the costs are, I believe, prohibitive over the long haul. Number three, make no mistake about it, this changes the bylaw to where we will have electronic voting. And the only way not to have it is to not fund it. Otherwise, it is a bylaw that we use electronic voting. So, in answer to the question, once we vote on this, it's a bylaw. And if we fund it, we have to use electronic voting. The other thing is, 7 years on the school committee and some years as a selectman, the cooperation with other towns on joint projects has always been a very cooperative effort. I'm being facetious. So I would say borrowing the equipment from someone else is not a place we want to go. We'll want to own it. So for that reason, I'm opposed to this bylaw.
I'm Cheryl Lampshire, 84 Hopkinton Road. I have an IT background, and I've done testing. What?
Just get a little bit
Get
closer.
closer.
Beautiful. That's it.
I have an IT and test background for about 30 years, and one of my jobs was to identify whether all these good ideas were actually good for the company, and about 80% of them failed. So for a variety of reasons. So my concern would be changing the company, which would be our town meeting, before we know the technology is working for us. So I would want to see a test, not in a town meeting, but in some other environment that has pre-tested it before we bring it into a town meeting. The second thing is if you're actually doing a trial, you have to actually have another stand, you have to do the voting both ways. You have to use the test method, and then you have to use your traditional method and see if the results are equivalent or validated. So that adds an incredible amount of time. As we see, we're not that far along in the meeting so far.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Antonelli?
So I just wanted to clarify some of the points that previous speakers made regarding possibly hitting the wrong button if you were blind or had a visual impairment. Specifically, two of the devices actually have vibratory features that give you feedback as to which button you pressed and whether or not your vote was received. Second of all, as far as tabulating errors or tabulating auditing trails, there's both, one system actually gives you what they call a passive count in the room, and all of the towns that we surveyed and looked at and went to their meetings all had auditing processes. So at certain points during the meeting, they would stop and ask everybody to vote yes, everybody to vote no, everybody to abstain, and certainly we would want to implement all of those best practices that previous towns used. As far as testing, the testing on this equipment has been done. There are many towns here in Massachusetts that are using electronic voting for town meeting. When I talk about trialing, I'm not talking about whether or not the equipment works. I'm talking about whether or not the equipment works for us, whether or not we like it, whether or not one device over another is easier to hold, easier to manipulate. And as The last part has to do with the joint projects comment. I think it's a pretty sad commentary if we're going to sit up here and say that as a small regional town that has a regional school system, and that we're not looking to work collaboratively with other towns. I think maybe that was a problem, a historical problem. Maybe it had to do with some of the people that were trying to do some of that outreach and collaboration. I don't know, but I have to say that I find the people in other towns around here to be just as nice as the people here, and I would be eager to work with them. As far as previous testing, there are some products that have a better accuracy rate, that have better auditing features, that have better features for the people that live in this town, and that's why I wanted to pilot and try more than one device here in town. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Folks, I'm hearing a lot of chatter. Everyone who just speaks a little bit, all of a sudden it just vibrates up. So please be quiet. Allow the speakers a chance to speak in a quiet environment. Thank you.
Marcia Keselowski, 10 Whitney Lane. I was on the committee and attended several town meetings, Weston and Grafton included, talked extensively to Hopkinton for feedback on the electronic voting. And I stayed after the Grafton meeting and the Weston meeting to talk to individuals to find out feedback and when there were breaks, and to find out what people thought. And it was actually very positive, which almost surprised me when you talk to certain demographics within the audience. And some of the other questions about auditing, there were audits that went on during the meetings. The other thing is, if we don't pass the bylaw and we wait till the day of the meeting to vote and it's voted down, we'll have lost that vendor for a free trial, because if it's voted down and they sent the equipment, spent the time, then we say no, then we'll send the equipment back and they're not going to give us equipment for another free pilot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir?
Brad Phyllis, 11 Christian Hill Road, a member of the Technology Committee, or is not part of the Electronic Voting Committee. I would like to say personally, I am against this. I would not put my faith in technology for my voice. I'd like to echo some of the concerns that others had here around validation, verification, auditing, as well as ongoing costs. Technology companies come and go, devices come and go. I'm sure you're all aware of updates that break things and having to move to new devices. As the Finance Committee mentioned, this would be a cost and maybe a prohibitive cost going forward. Thank you.
Mr. Andrews.
I'm going to make a motion that we table this article.
Second.
Okay. There's been a motion to table that, and that requires a 2/3 majority. Let me explain what tabling means, okay? So let me make an analogy with remove the question motion. Moving the question says you're done talking about it and then you want to vote on it. So it's two separate things, okay? Tabling does both of those things in one vote, okay? So tabling something means that you're done talking about it and you put it aside and you don't want to deal with it. So it's like both things happen in one vote. Do you understand my point here? So that's what tabling means. So if you vote yes to table it, it means you want to not vote out of it, you don't want to talk about it anymore, and you want to kill it right there in one big vote, as opposed to moving the question, which means I'm done talking about it, and then I want to vote on it. Okay? So we have a comment?
A question?
Yeah, why don't you come to the mic, though, so we could all hear it.
Just a question on tabling the article. Does that require a 2/3 majority to pass?
It does. It requires a 2/3 majority vote, similar to moving the question requires a 2/3 majority vote, and because of that, it ends debate. Okay? The only difference is that tabling, not only does it end the debate, it kills it. So that like voting against it. Whereas moving the question means you want to stop talking about it, and then you want to vote on it. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? The difference between the two things? So, Any other comment? Okay, good. So that's what tabling means. It is, there's been a motion to table. Has there been a second?
Yes. Second.
There's been a second. So right now, Mr. Bates, we can't have any other discussion until we deal with that. So, this is what it means. If you vote yes to table this, it means two things. You want to stop discussion and you want to vote against what we're talking about for electronic voting. That's what a yes vote means. Okay? A no vote means you don't want to do that. You don't want to kill it. You want to maybe have some more discussion and then have a vote on it later. Do you understand the difference between the two votes? Yes. Clear. Good. Thank you very much. So, this does require a 2/3 vote. So, all those in favor of tabling the motion from Article 14 for electronic voting signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. Okay. Now, what I want to do, so that we're absolutely 100% sure, we are going to have a standing count on this, because, please, bear with me. I want an historical record of exactly how the vote was, so there's no question in the future about whether or not maybe it wasn't quite a 2/3 vote. 2/3 vote is very different than a majority vote. Okay? So, bear with us for another 5 or 10 minutes. We will go through the standing process again. So, the way you want to stand is the way you just voted here. So can I ask the 6 folks to come forward again, and we will do another standing vote. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your patience with us here. Oh, you first, okay, and then you guys first. So I want you to work together in the middle. You two work together. Sorry about that, but just for the... That's fine. That's totally okay. All right, so you guys all clear on that section to vote? Thank you. So, all those in favor of the motion to table this, please rise.